So I'm not a detail person. I never really liked history classes because there were too many dates that I could never remember. And I kind of glaze over when someone describes the inner working of a computer. And I admit I sometimes skip those long descriptive passages in a book because I want to get on with the story. I think of myself as more of a generalist who understands concepts and sees the big picture. And maybe some of you share this orientation. But here on the Daily Sit, we're talking about investigation, which is the second factor of awakening. And investigation invites all of us to become a detail person. It invites us to look at the inner workings of the mind, even if it's not generally our nature, and to look in a detailed and moment to moment way, to scrutinize our experience in order to really understand how we create our own problems and how we can find more ease in our lives. Investigation is not about cognizing or memorizing dates, thank goodness, or even about understanding our stories. But it is about exploring closely our direct experience and learning about the construction of the mind, the processes of the mind, those that make trouble for us and those that support us. It's not intellectual up in the head, but it's visceral. It's in the body. An investigation definitely takes an effort and it takes an intention. We have learned so many ways to avoid or become casual with experience because we don't want to look too closely at these inner dynamics. And the mind has become very adept at skimming over the places that are uncomfortable. At some level, we don't really want to look at how we create much of our own suffering. So, investigation challenges us, and we have to revisit our intentions often. We have to remind ourselves that by uncovering our habits of mind, we ultimately give ourselves the opportunity to change and to find deeper happiness. There is a lot of guidance in all of the texts on how to cultivate this quality of investigation. We might turn our attention to one of the three characteristics of existence that we speak about often: impermanence, dukkha or unsatisfactoriness, and radical interconnection. And we can closely investigate these truths as they show up in our experience. Or we might look at the three poisons, which we also talk about a lot: greed, hatred, and delusion. And notice how and when they show up for us. Underlying both of these, and maybe a little simpler to discern for ourselves, is whether our mind state is wholesome or unwholesome. Is our mind state, moment to moment, moving us towards ease and peace or towards more suffering? So I want to offer to you an example from my own practice on a recent retreat. And I have to advocate for periodic retreats. I know they're hard for us, some of us, to get away to, but I find that although investigation can happen anytime we quiet the mind enough to see clearly, retreats really support us to slow down, which makes these kind of investigations much more accessible. And unless it's a solo retreat, we get the benefit of Sangha to support us. So on this retreat, on the first day, And each day after, we retreatants were encouraged to include our meals as part of our practice: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. To stay embodied as we walked to the dining room, to serve ourselves mindfully, to slow down and really savor our meal. Meals on a retreat are a big deal because they are one of the very few distractions that we have from sitting with ourselves. And it's my sense that food, in one way or another, carries a lot of meaning for many of us. So that mealtime is ripe for a lot of practice and investigation. When I walked into the dining room the first day, from the moment I read the menu at the end of the buffet table, I could feel this leaning forward in my body and a sort of clenching. When I got my meal and sat down, I looked at my plate of beautiful food and I picked up a forkful. And from the first bite, I was anticipating the next one. I was getting it ready on my fork even before the bite before was eaten. I noticed my stomach was clenched, my breath was really tight, and I was filled with wanting and craving for all this wonderful food. Before I got halfway through what was on my plate, I was already thinking about what I wanted to get more of from the buffet. But the irony was that I wasn't enjoying my meal. I was barely noticing what was in my mouth, but anticipating constantly what came next. I was always leaning forward. And truthfully, it was incredibly painful. It was like a motor that was revved up and couldn't slow. So finally, in a moment when I became very mindful of my response to the food, I cut the momentum. I put my fork down, took a breath, and just tried to savor the flavors. It was a totally different experience, and it was a relief. The whole experience was so painful that I think that's why I, and maybe a lot of other people, eat quickly to get over the craving, because who wants to feel that? At some level, I knew this habit of eating fast, but I had never felt the pain of it so clearly. And I had never seen it arise in a moment, notice my immediate resistance to it, and understand that it would build on itself unless I consciously broke the momentum. And that realization kind of stopped me short. This is the second noble truth, that suffering is caused by grasping and craving. And this is greed, one of the three poisons. And clearly, this was an unwholesome mind state. I saw it all so clearly, and that made all the difference. Because with that clarity of mind, I could make a different choice and find more ease. Viktor Frankl authored this well-known quote that totally describes my experience. It says, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." So true, so simple and powerful, and only available when we can see clearly the stimulus and the response. So now I've become interested in how I experience pleasurable moments in other aspects of my life. So the investigation itself has gained momentum. When I walk outside on a beautiful day, am I enjoying the beauty in this moment? Or am I holding on with a hope that it'll last? Can I go on vacation and return without pining for that free time to continue? Can I let go of the quiet of a retreat and turn to my life without holding on? There are endless examples. And what I learned at the dining table, and am continuing to explore, is that when something provides pleasure, in literally a moment, we want to hold on to it. And that we can actually experience that moment, the moment when it turns from a pleasant feeling tone to an unpleasant feeling tone. And we can notice what is happening in the mind and what is happening in the body. And we can observe where it leads us. It's not the pleasant experience itself that causes any problem, but it's our relationship to it. And really, it's our denial of its impermanent nature. If we look closely and see clearly, then we have opportunity to respond differently. What is it to appreciate pleasant experience, to savor it, to be uplifted by it and not hold on, to just let it go naturally? This too can be an investigation. Bill has referred to this short poem, which I really enjoy. It's by Blake, and I want to repeat it here because it's so succinct and so clear and speaks to this wisdom of not grasping. Blake says, "He who binds to himself a joy doth the winged life destroy. But he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise." Blake, although I don't think he was a Buddhist, definitely closely investigated his experience and came to a deep understanding of the truth of things. And that's what we're each trying to do here as well. So whether or not we're detail-oriented or generalists, we need to set up the conditions for our practice well. We need to quiet the mind, cultivate mindfulness, and remind ourselves, maybe fairly often, of our intentions for our practice. And this will fuel our investigation. So, thank you all for listening. And let's transition to our time of practice. Deep breath, bringing attention into our bodies. Noticing how they feel in this moment, what they may need in this moment. So that you can sit both alert and at ease. And continue that until it feels complete for you. And as you're ready, bringing yourself into a posture that's relatively still. That's comfortable. That is supported. And let yourself rest in this place. Inviting your attention into your inner landscape. And with eyes of curiosity and care, begin to notice what's going on inside. As much as possible, letting yourself settle. Noticing that as the body begins to relax and open, that the mind too can begin to let go of the thought stream and also relax and open. Becoming aware of a bit more of the details. Perhaps watching the breath in its rising and falling. Or if you're oriented towards sounds, receiving the sounds, noticing them coming and going. Notice if you are leaning forward into your experience, if you're over efforting to get close to your experience, and let yourself relax back. Receive. And that it's in that settling back that your mind will quiet more. And slowly things will become more clear. Grounding in the body, returning time and again to presence. This body is always living in the present moment.